Well, most of it's mine. Some of it's the browns are Theron's. The pink is the business office. I have the high school, East Marshall High School calendars and stuff. Linked, but yeah, the red ones are mine. But yeah,
It's like
this drives my life. So.
I don't know how you can
You ever seen the movie Multiplicity?
All right, we will call the meeting to order. This is the time and the place for the regular board meeting of the Marshalltown Community School District. Welcome to all of you joining us here in person. Welcome as well to anybody who might be tuning in or watching via the live stream. We've got a few announcements before we go too far. We've got a pink sign-up sheet there on the speakers table for anybody who wants to address the board during public comment time. Please understand that you will be given 5 minutes to address the board, and Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the district or their job performance. Also, in accordance with board policy, board members will not respond to comments so that we can comply with open meetings laws. I forgot to do introductions. So we'll do board members to my left, Karina Hernandez and Maria Morales. To my right, Zach Wall. We've also got 3 of our student school board representatives here this evening, Caitlin Yepes Ramirez, Xander Stupp, and Legay Paw. Immediately to my left is Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, and to my right, Mr. Randy Denham, our board secretary, and I am Sean Heitman. I think did I cover everything, Randy?
Yeah.
Perfect. Would you all please join me then in reading the mission statement of the Marshalltown Community School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And please stand as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes, we have a few amendments. In 2.02, we have a McKinney-Vento grant agreement that we recently received for $25,000. There's a change order number 3 for the tornado safe team room. In 2.07, we have a request for declaring of no value furniture that's being supplanted at Marshalltown High School, most of which is unusable or unrepairable without great expense. In 2.08, under gifts, grants, and bequests, we have a wonderful gift of all of our second graders receiving the book Just Like Caitlin, which is a statewide initiative for all second graders, courtesy of the Jensen family.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Morales Hernandez. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0. Abby, got some recognitions?
Good evening, everyone. You might have seen it on Facebook. Recently at Woodbury Elementary School, some winter coats being handed out. Lennox and Operation Warm partnered to provide coats to all the students at Woodbury Elementary School in late September. Each student was able to pick out their new jacket with the help of a volunteer. It was super sweet to see it in person, taking photos of it, the big smiles, both from the volunteers and the students. This is the second year where all students were able to select a new coat, with last year being at Rogers Elementary School. We appreciate their generosity in keeping our students warm this winter. And then tonight, representatives from Lennox and Woodbury Elementary School are here tonight to introduce themselves and kind of talk about the event. So I'll pass the mic.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Carter. I'm one of the HR generalists at Lennox. It was amazing putting on this event and having Operation Warm come in and help helping all the kids from Woodbury Elementary School to get a coat and seeing their smiles. We had about 31 volunteers from our salary and hourly population, and it was great seeing them outside of the plan and at the school, helping out all these kids, seeing their smiles, writing names on the coats, and we had a really fun time, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year.
My name is Sam Badke. I am the school resource specialist at Woodbury Elementary. I actually heard about Operation Warm through Sue Hay over at Rogers. She's the SRS there. And honestly, Operation Warm really did all the heavy lifting. All I did was get the numbers for them, tell them a date, and then they contacted Lennox for us. They shipped all the coats to us. They set them all out. It was really it was all them with the work, but it was really cool to see. Some of our families actually worked at Lennox, so they were there to help the kids pick out coats, and that was just kind of fun having the families in the school and doing that. It was just an upbeat morning. There was music playing, kids were playing around with their volunteer. It was just a lot of fun, and everybody got their coat. And for the kids that weren't there, we picked out those coats for them based on sizes that their families told us. So even the kids that weren't able to be there were able to still get a coat.
How many total coats were distributed?
We have just under 400 students. I want to say like 390 something.
Wow.
I can't remember the exact number.
I think every child got a coat. I believe.
They did.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you'll stay for one more. You're good. And then you might remember from the last board meeting, accepting a donation from Undies for Everyone Foundation. Lennox was also a part of that, aimed to support underserved students. Over 2,000 pairs of underwear will benefit around 360 students in the district. Principal Eric Goslinga and then representatives from Lennox are here tonight to talk about that donation and how it will benefit the students of Marshalltown.
It was also really exciting to do the Undies for Everyone event. So all of these volunteer events were during our week of Days of Good. That's what our Lennox Foundation does. They had a whole week of volunteerism within our own communities that we operate in. And so it was great to get some more people to help out with packing all the undies. And I remember there were like tens of boxes, like thousands of undies that we had to fold. It was great. So a lot of our hourly folks helped out with this, and I'm so happy that they were able to enjoy doing it, and also being able to give all these undies to all the kids in the community.
Yeah, I'd like to publicly thank the team at Lennox and the volunteer committee for all their hard work with this. In my role as McKinney-Vento homeless liaison, I did author this grant to help bring Undies for Everyone to the district, and luckily Lennox stepped into the void and provided the funding and the work to make that happen. Excuse me. The sizes that we got will benefit K-4 students in the district. All of our elementaries have gotten over 500 pairs of underwear delivered to them, both boys and girls. And I was in an elementary school just this morning delivering my very last box, and the nurse said she had just gotten an email from a teacher about a little boy that had come to school with no underwear. So she's like, hey, this is super timely. In my work with homeless folks, the most requested clothing items that we get in order are socks, underwear, and like jogger pants. Those are the things that are most requested. So this fills a definite need for our students that are homeless, our students that are free and reduced, and our asset limited community, employed people, but are, just with limited assets and things. So we really appreciate the donation, and it will be put to good use.
And Eric, thank you for taking the initiative to write the grant and to clarify that this was not another duties as assigned type of deal.
No, we got a lot going on with the McKinney-Vento stuff and the homeless thing. You'll see another grant coming later in the consent agenda. So we just got that contract just this morning, which is why Dr. Schutte asked to amend the agenda. But those funds will also be really important for our students and their well-being. So.
Melissa, make sure Lennox knows how thankful we are for them stepping up and helping Woodbury and the district in this regard. It's really great to see, and we definitely value our partnership with Lennox.
Thank you for the opportunity. There's been other volunteer opportunities throughout the year, and a lot of the hourly folks and the salary folks, they love helping out children, and so anything that they can do to help out children, they'll do it.
You'll probably get contacted by our junior achievement folks shortly.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking at the consent agenda, we've got minutes from the September 26th regular meeting, the September 23rd special meeting. Jackie, any items to note in personnel?
We do have a retirement. Janice Jones started driving for the Marshtown School District in the spring of 1993 and has been a dependable driver since then. Over the 3 decades driving for Marshtown Community School District, Janice has been a key in helping get our students to many athletic events. Janice primarily drove the special needs bus over the years as her regular assigned route. We appreciate all that Janice has done and wish her well in retirement.
Thank you. Interagency agreements and contracts, we've got an amendment with Iowa Vocational Rehab Services to serve students with disabilities via IJAG, an agreement with FACTS for Title I services at St. Francis, a service agreement with Thought Exchange for Engagement Plus service for the 25-26 school year. Did Eric leave? Eric's grant for the McKinney-Vento Education for Homeless Children and Youth grant agreement for $25,000. And a change order for the pink painted visitor room and the new vinyl fencing for the tornado safe room. Questions about any of those items? Looking at open enrollments, I counted these up the other day. We had 5 in, I think. And 12, I think, out. But all but 3 of the outs were continuations. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have 1 recommend to deny.
And just for the boards, a continuation is when a family moves from one district to another, but they wish to continue to be educated in their prior district. So that happens quite a bit in this area.
Randy, any items to note in bills?
No.
Any questions for Randy about the bills? We've got some obsolete or proposed to be obsolete equipment to dispose of.
Yeah, we've had, we have a lot of new furnishings for the high school CTE and science project, most of which came after the project was in a position of being occupiable at the beginning of the year. So we're kind of having furniture arrive regularly through this next month, and then needs to be put together, installed, and then put in place. And as a result of that, we're displacing a lot of older furnishings. Those furnishings, which are still in really good condition, we're either repurposing to other areas of the district or the high school, or moving to the storage facility. And we'll also take stock depending on what we hear comes our way regarding the hurricane victims. There may be some potential to do some clearing out of a lot of the furniture that's been in the storage facility if there's a communicated need for that.
Okay.
And then in gifts, grants, and bequests, we've got the donation of the Just Like Caitlin book for every second grade student. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Everybody at once. We'll go with Wall and Morales. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0. Nobody's on the pink
Nobody's on the sheet.
So, kids, you're up.
Welcome back.
Caitlin, you turned that off. Did you know that? Or maybe it just turned off.
Battery die.
Yeah, I think it may have just given up. That one's not.
The other one is.
Good evening, everyone. Today we just have a presentation over recent activities and or events that have happened at Marshtown High School. This happened early September. There was a visit in Dubuque. It was called the Envirothon, and the students just visited different farms and different creeks. They explored the Mississippi River Museum a little bit, and excuse me, they learned a little bit about how some of our actions may impact the Mississippi River and how they may also impact the oceans. The next thing that happened, it was earlier last week. There was a few college visits, one to Iowa and one to UNI. Students just learned about farm operations mostly, stuff like how to make butter, milk a cow. They also got a sample ice cream. Along with that, there was also a career fair at MCC. This was juniors that attended that.
Wait, where was the kangaroo?
I do believe that the kangaroo was at one of the college visits.
There was a, okay. I mean, I see him in the picture. Just like wondering where he was when we were petting him.
Alrighty, and then last week was homecoming week. I would say that there was a lot of participation with the dress-up days, and then the week prior to that, we also had a pep rally, and I would say that there was a lot of engagement in the pep rally because there were games that students got to be involved in, so they made groups with each grade, and then they played some games that anyone, if they wanted to, could volunteer and participate in. Our homecoming king and queen were Osmar and Giselle. And then for the next one, we just have a little football recap. We did lose that one, 44-17. Not the game we wanted, but it's the game we got. So. And then NHS is also going to be hosting a blood drive October 23rd. Hopefully we get a lot of signups from that.
So as the month of October just started, a new group of student Rotarians are heading out to MCC to have weekly meetings every Tuesday with the Rotary members. And last week on Tuesday, they introduced themselves to the members. And then for speech and debate, they are having a fundraiser. I'm actually in this club. We are hoping to raise $2,000, and the fundraiser consists of bundles of popcorn, and they come in a variety of flavors. You can also buy them for an individual pack for $11, and we are hoping to have this fundraiser to fund for competition entry fees, transportation, hotel expenses, and hiring judges. And hopefully we will have enough money to attend more competitions.
Just so everybody knows, that link does work. It takes you right to the page to buy popcorn.
Yes. Any questions?
How many bags are you buying, Sean?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to look and see. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Just for your information, a book was placed at your table. It's a book that actually the board did a book study on with the student school board reps last year, and Ravi, who is the author of that book, is actually coming to do an assembly program at Morristown High School next Tuesday. And then I also left the three of you a copy of the agenda for the Iowa School Board Convention, which November 21st, I think it is. Thursday is the full day of the convention, and I think they're actually going to have a special session or event in addition to it for student school board reps that come. So just simply send me an email letting me know if you can be available to go on that field trip that day and join our board. We'll work with you to arrange transportation if that's needed. So if you talk to, well, Giselle would be able to tell you, but I think all of our prior student school board reps have had a great experience attending for the day. Pete?
Is this the one that's working here?
Yes.
That's it. Very good. Thank you. Good evening. It's great to be here. A couple of things that wanted to share with the leadership here is really something we're calling an infographic related to Miller Middle School and the concept of reimagining that facility. As you know, various teams and consultants have been working on the Reimagine Miller for over 9 months, and it really started with understanding the existing conditions there and looking at how to transform the facility. Throughout those 9+ months, there was various committees that were formed, and certainly various groups that were looked for to gather input. Among the groups were educators, administrators, some of you on the board, students. That was one of the major components of some of the input that was received, getting student feedback in terms of what they're currently going through, what they currently deal with, and ideally, what does education look like in Marshalltown moving forward? So that was tremendous input from them. We also received input from local government representatives from various facets, both at the city and I believe the county level was also represented to some extent. Area business leaders. What does the future of Marshalltown look like from a business perspective? And equally important, the task force, which was a cross-section of all of those groups, certainly had a lot to think about. You can imagine 9 months of working on concepts and ideas and what does education look like in Marshalltown specifically for Miller Middle School. And what you're looking at here, the graphic here is kind of a summary of 3 columns of options, if you will. You'll recall that the task force came before you several months ago to make their recommendation in terms of reimagining Miller, which is column C that you see on the far right there. The other criteria that that group looked at was the rows that you see on the left-hand side, and really 6 components quickly came to surface. The first one at the very top is Miller Middle School being, the existing Miller Middle School being to greatest proximity of your student population. And that is important as you had a study done, a population or a demographic study as we call it, in terms of understanding where your student enrollment and your population is. And it was discovered, at least found in that study, that the population is on the northern side of town for the most part. So when you compare the 3 concepts, which is a typical new middle school, and then a new middle school equal to what you have at existing Miller Middle School, and we can talk about those components here briefly. Those 2 components are having a secondary athletic space, a secondary gym, and also the auditorium. A new middle school generally would not have those 2 additional assets. So when we look at, okay, what would it look like to do a new Miller Middle School equal to what we have there now, right? So those were the 3 ideas that were studied here in this graphic. The second criteria that was talked about was the impact of sustainability. What are we looking at when we talk about a brand new site, a brand new facility? Are we being stewards of assets and investments that we already have as a district? So you'll notice that the sustainability component goes beyond the brick and mortar that's currently there. You heard a very nice presentation earlier from representatives from Lennox in terms of how they're giving back and how they're participating in your district's what we call sustainability. And that makes a big impact when we talk about reusing and improving existing facilities. The other part that we look at is, will it reinvigorate and revitalize part of your community? And the group felt that the answer is yes. You're looking at the existing Miller and how it impacts the neighborhood surrounding that, right? The last part is, and I think I mentioned this, in that vein, sustainability is about stewardship of your resources. So you can see that in those 3 concepts, A and B are new facilities. The sustainability impact probably isn't as high there, but when you reimagine Miller, you do address a majority of those components that I spoke to. The next phase is site area. To look at new construction, you would have to make an acquisition of approximately 28 acres of land somewhere in the community. What we looked at is the existing Miller Middle School with the components of Franklin Field. You have a practice field not too far from there as well. You can see that the comparison is approximately 12 acres. So at the existing Miller Middle School, we know that while the property is not contiguous as it would be on a new site or a new building, you already have the investment of real estate taken care of. So while Reimagine Miller doesn't address having that much property, you do have that investment already taken care of with Reimagining Miller. Another component that we look at is the historical significance. And we heard throughout the various group conversations that the auditorium is something that the community, number 1, makes use of. Number 2, is needed. And number 3, is a source of pride for members of your community. So when we look at a brand new facility, that historical sense does not come along with it. Yes, you can build a brand new auditorium. However, that historical component isn't really addressed in a new facility. So Reimagine Miller does essentially check those boxes, and those of you that have seen it throughout its tenure of almost 100 years know that it does play a crucial role in the history of Marshalltown and certainly in the fine arts realm. The other part that we look at is area for learning. And what we mean by that is square foot per student. In a new facility, there's approximately a range of 200 to 220 square feet per student. We benchmarked about 215 square feet per student for a new facility, middle school, typically in this region or this geography. So you can see that a brand new middle school is certainly much less in square footage than what you have at the existing Miller Middle School currently. And I referenced earlier that secondary competition gym, that second athletic facility, and certainly also the Performing Arts Center that existing Miller Middle School has. So when we apply those spaces and the square footage that comes with those to education, existing Miller Middle School has the opportunity to offer kids about 310 square feet per student, right? Because of those additional components, the additional gym and the auditorium. Lastly, we look at the investment of dollars. We've had a lot of questions around, well, the investment to Reimagine Miller is, on the low end about $94 million in total. Why wouldn't we just build a brand new facility for that amount of money? And as I mentioned before, column A, which is typical middle school, to do a brand new one with not the amount of square footage, certainly not the other characteristics we talked about, would add between $3 and $3.5 million to that price tag. And if we look at column B, which is let's build something like what we have at Miller Middle School right now, additional square footage, additional gym, a new auditorium, that would add upwards of maybe 17, 18 to $19 million to that base $94 million investment. So when we talk about stewardship, and we heard that from the groups, we heard being responsible, we heard being good stewards of the resources that we have. This graphic really tells us the reason the task force vetted these opportunities the way they did with those characteristics is Reimagine Miller addresses a majority of the input that we heard. The one that doesn't quite fill in the full circle, if you will, is the amount of property. But we know that that could be a long-range plan. We know that you already have an investment of property around Miller Middle School. While not contiguous, it is already there with Franklin Field, the practice gym, or the practice field not too far from there. So that is how the task force evaluated. This is partly representative of that. The other part that's important to note here is that investment of dollars. And that's really what drove some of the ideas around Reimagine Miller. Can we transform that? And the answer is yes. Does it all need to be transformed? Not entirely. There are various areas that will be transformed. There will be new construction. There will be some renovations. And in some places, it'll be minimal renovations, such as the competition gym that you currently have there now. So, with that said, I'll take the first question.
Well, I think just a couple additional comments, and we've had some recent renditions of what the building can look like that Envision Architecture's provided us. The what they have shared is that when this project is all said and done, that 80% of Miller will be new or like new when it's done. And part of it still being recognizable would be our desire to make sure that how it is reimagined and reinvented still pays tribute to the architectural uniqueness of the facility as it relates, I would say, particularly to the frontage. And then, as Pete talks about, recent investments of the past, it wasn't that long ago, 20 years ago, I believe, or that the district invested heavily in building the new gym, building the new entrance and classroom spaces that run from the entrance to the south. One of the things we heard loud and clear anytime there was discussion about the potential of building new was, what are you going to do with the old? And there was a definite concern about the potential of another large building being unoccupied and depreciating over time, similar to the hospital or similar to the mall or similar to McFarland Clinic, which is in great shape, but there hasn't been a viable buyer evidently, so it's been sitting for quite some time. So that was something. And I think the biggest thing really, besides the fact that the bones of that building have been determined by multiple engineers and architects to be extremely solid, is that 70% of our 5,200 students live north of the viaduct or north of the tracks. And so the prospects of building a new building, which would have to be in the southernmost sector of the community, furthest away from where a majority of the kids live, would lead to increased buses, increased drivers, increased monitors, increased fuel costs, and all of that. The buses come out of the facilities dollars, but everything else comes out of the general fund. So that's one of the issues with the inequities with how much districts have to transport kids, especially in the rural Iowa, is that those are dollars that could be going into the classroom if they weren't having to go into transportation. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion, for us to put ourselves in that predicament where fewer teachers or fewer support staff or fewer curriculum would be able to be purchased because we need to buy fuel, buses, drivers, pairs, what have, to transfer kids further away to a facility that would offer less than what we currently have.
Questions, comments?
Just as a reminder to everybody, and I know the board is aware that, part of this project too is putting audiovisual systems similar to what we have in Lenahan Intermediate School and Marshtown High School in every one of our elementaries, and particularly with the new intercom systems for which most of our elementaries do not have and have not had, but that's a huge security asset now, safety and security asset. And then the other component is the renovation of Franklin Field so that it once again can become a high quality practice and competition space for Miller student activities, but also a significant public access space. All you have to do on any given night is go by the high school stadium complex, which is a public access. It's open 24/7 for people to use, to see that when we don't have school activities, other older students and younger adults from the community are using that facility during almost every daylight hour. So it has served a huge need on the south side of town, and I think having a similar asset on the north side of town will have the same result as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's part of how we see that community sustainability component, public use of these public facilities.
Okay.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
You want to talk about the revised agreement, Pete?
Absolutely. Yeah. So on the next topic, in terms of the agreement for construction management services, this essentially, further explains the terms of that proposal that we made last summer, June, July of '23. And at that time, we didn't know yet how the reimagined Miller was gonna go. We didn't know exactly what we were dealing with. So what we did was we proposed to the district, which you all approved, was that Boyd Jones would be part of your existing condition assessment, which we did the discovery on and put budgets together and maybe some phasing or sequencing opportunities at that time. The other part of it was pre-referendum support, which is what we've been doing leading up to the election that's coming up here in a few weeks. And then the last component that we mentioned in there was assisting the district with the architect selection, request for qualification and interview process. So all of those things are essentially wrapped up with exception of the pre-referendum support, which will be coming to a close here pretty soon. And what this agreement allows us to do with your approval is it allows us to continue to move forward with the organization of the consultants should the project have a successful outcome November 5th. And what that means is we launch right into design. The architects and engineers start doing more of their work. We continue to coordinate their efforts, budget the fabulous ideas that they come up with, and then we start talking about schedule. When do things start to happen? When does it really get going? Phasing. How do we implement that knowing that you have an occupied facility there and knowing that we have to minimize disruption to your learners, to your staff, to your administrators. So all of those things, more importantly, it allows us to continue budget, schedule, that phasing conversation, consultant coordination, and allows us also the opportunity to advocate for you as all of the project really starts to unfold and more details are put on paper, if you will. The last part of that is obviously the construction management piece, which is exactly what we'll do under this agreement is we won't self-perform any of our work, but we will manage and coordinate the successful low bidders that we would like to see locally participate because we know that they are likely the ones that are also have students, have family members that work for the school district. So we want them to participate, and that will start marketing the project once the time is right so that they can participate in the bidding process.
Questions? I assume that contract's been reviewed by legal counsel?
Yep, we've had Danielle review it, and I was happy to find that Pete had Danielle review it as well, or at least consulted with her prior to even submitting to us. So.
Correct. Yeah, we do quite a bit of work with Allers and Cooney, and specifically Danielle and some of her colleagues. So they're very familiar with us, and we're familiar with them as well.
Okay, if there's no other questions, is there a motion to approve the proposed contractual agreement with Boyd Jones to serve in the capacity of construction manager as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Hernandez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you all. I'll hang
Thanks.
around. Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It feels good to be a Bobcat again. So today I'm going to talk about the updated attendance policy. So I'm going to take you through some of the major changes that were made at the state level and then that we have adapted.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Have you guys met Ellie? I don't think so.
So Ellie Harris Medina is our new district attendance coordinator, and she's just been wonderful trying to get her hands on this new law that you're going to learn. You'll be experts by the end of tonight, I promise. Ellie's done such a nice job going out to all of the different buildings and meeting with attendance teams and trying to get our system in place around the new attendance law. So, Ellie, I'm going to let you take it away. I'm here for moral support. So,
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Elizabeth Harris Medina, and I go by Ellie as well. Same person.
ELI.
Yes, EOY. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the state file that got passed. This was passed on July 1st, 2024. So this is when the file became active, and they wrote it. It got signed into law, and it had various guidance of what school boards or school districts would adopt as their new attendance policy. So I'm going to take you through what those major changes were. So a couple key changes are on the definitions. So chronically absent, you're going to hear this word a lot in the education world right now. If you grew up, went to school in the U.S., had kids, you may have not heard this word before, but it's really relevant right now as we're talking about student attendance and student retention and just student engagement. So they have decided that the chronically absent definition is someone who misses 10% or more of the grading period. So here at the Marshalltown School District, our grading period is by semester. So we're talking about a student that misses 10% of the semester, which is roughly around 8.4 days, give or take. And then the other definition that they have updated is truant. So basically truancy happens whenever a student misses school and the parent has a legal obligation to take their child to school. So they have updated this percentage of a child becomes truant whenever they miss 20% of the days in a grading period. So again, when they miss 20% of the semester. They have also updated the compulsory age. So just to simplify this, compulsory age means that this is the legal age where students are required to attend school. So we know it as 6 to 16 years old, and they have expanded that to include 4-year preschool. So if a parent has enrolled their 4-year-old child in the public school district for a preschool program, they also have to adhere by this attendance policy. So the state also provides guidance of what days or what scenarios are absent from this law, what's excluded, or what we may say what's excused, what's an excused absence. So I'll say excused, even though the state says exempt, to keep it in a simpler term for parents listening and our board. So these different requirements are if somebody is graduating or obtaining a high school diploma, obviously we would not, continue legal like a legal process with them. If they have court or some legal obligation. Number 3, attending religious services or receiving religious instruction. We have added this as one of our definitions in our policy for the district. We do have a lot of cultures, and Marshalltown's really diverse, and we really pride ourselves in that. So we really want to be culturally responsible and responsive to those family needs. So religious events can include, if there's funerals or any religious celebration that may happen during the school year, that is excused. Number 4 is a legitimate medical reason. So we actually just got clear information or like more details on this last week. So I'm a twin mom of toddlers, so they're sick all the time, and we understand that a lot of kids do get sick in the district. So this includes any medical absence will be excused as well. So for an example, if Shauna's son wakes up, has a fever, she calls in and says, hey, my son has a fever, he can't attend, that is excused. And in our policy, we actually have a state guideline for parents that they can look up and see, oh, if my kid is throwing up, should I send them to school? Yes or no. If my kid has,
if his leg hurts, should I send him to school or not? So we do provide a state guideline for that. And then again, continuing, if it's written in the child's IEP program that they have certain attendance requirements, obviously that's excused. And then if they have to enroll in a different program as part of their IEP as well. So they have also provided us with an attendance policy procedure. So again, I have added on here for you all that this procedure applies after we take away those excused absences. So these are, think of them as unexcused absences. So if a student misses 10% of the semester, we will send a certified letter home. So we have the first batch of letters going out this week. Their name will also be shared on a list with our county attorney. At 50% absences this semester, they are required to have a mandatory meeting with the parent, the child, and a school representative, and they're going to be signing an attendance improvement plan. So again, making goals of what are the obstacles, how can we support you through those obstacles and get you to school. And then at 20% absences in the semester, the child is considered truant. So we forward them to the county attorney, and then it's up to their discretion if they pursue legal action.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so you said some of those letters are going to be going out next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I assume then that those are kids who have already hit that 8 point whatever days?
Yes, correct. So this, great question. So again, this is by the semester. So I am pulling data from all of our schools, and I'm sorting it by days missed that are, after those exemptions, so unexcused. And then we will be sending letters to students that have 8 absences and above.
But it wouldn't, it would be someone who is already going to be chronically absent at the end of the semester, not somebody who is in danger of becoming, right? Somebody who's missed 10% of the days so far wouldn't yet have missed 8 days, right? Okay.
Yes, that is a great question. So this year, we have focused on the number of days just because the government has given us clear outline of that grading period. So for us, we took the number of days in a semester and we calculated what 10% of that would be. So it'll be an ongoing process of, targeting those students that hit that 10% throughout the year, and that 15% and 20%. And again, it's in order to be proactive. So we may communicate with the students beforehand. We may have a meeting before the 15%, but it's all in order to be proactive and to try to give as many resources as we can to the families so they don't have more absences. Great question.
Yeah, it's been a challenging adjustment, like so much legislation, laws made or laws changed, and then we worry afterwards about the details of how districts can implement that law effectively. And so literally we received an FAQ last week, I think it was
like Tuesday.
Yeah. And so that immediately upon receiving that, a lot of the work that Ellie had done to revise policies and regulations to come before you had to be even readjusted more as we learned more from the guidance that came through that document. And I do think that there will be a lot of ongoing conversations and maybe further tweaks made in this next legislative session once they figure out some of the challenges that have been made. But there's no question there's a need for this sort of thing. Chronic absenteeism has been on the increase since the pandemic, and the more days that are missed, the more chances kids aren't going to be Bobcat ready or ready for their adventure post-secondary, whatever it is that they want to do. So it's been great to have Ellie join our team, and as you can see, she's got a lot of energy.
Yes.
Her and Shina together, a dangerous combo.
We're both Leos, yeah.
We do have a number of policies and regulations that we're putting before you is that Ellie has worked on for us and vetted with Sean and I and Matt Kretzinger. And we're asking that these be approved for immediate implementation based on emergency circumstances, meaning the law is already in place, so we need to abide by the law, but they will come back to you at the next meeting for a first and hopefully final reading as well. But we need and want to be in a position where we have the policies and the regulation to back up our actions, such as sending letters and that sort of thing.
So who is the school representative as far as at each school that doesn't have an attendance specialist?
That is a great question. So the goal is to hire attendance specialists for all schools. But as you all know, we do have a lot of vacancies in the school district, but every school has an attendance team. So I meet with every school either weekly or every other week. And the attendance teams are usually made up of the principal, if they have an attendance specialist, the school nurse, the SRS, if they have a social worker. So it is a team of people that have a lot of contact with the student and the family. And the way that we handle our data, we sort it through like different absences, and students belong to different tiers. So we are targeting, based on these guidelines, like what percentages we want to look at. So students that hit 10% are students that we want to look at, and students who hit 20% are students that we definitely want to look at. So every school has an attendance and student success group, but not everybody has an attendance specialist. That's a good question.
So that team will decide who meets with the parent? Or that's what I was asking.
Oh,
like who's meeting with, yeah.
Yes, great question. So schools have done it a little bit differently. School conferences are coming up. So if we have students that are close to, it's like 12 point something days, whatever that 15% mark is, or if they're getting close, or after, or more than 8 days absent, I've told the schools that they can have those meetings at the parent-teacher conference. So it could be the teacher or the principal, or usually it's the SRS that has that meeting, again, to connect the parent with any resources or make an improvement plan that works for that family.
And Karina, you and Sean probably remember that when I came to the district in 2016, we only had half-time SRSs at each elementary school. So we wound up building out the at-risk funding in order to accommodate full-time SRSs once again at each of the elementaries, under the condition that half of their time would be spent focused on attendance. So because of that, we really focused on adding these attendance specialists at the larger schools, knowing the load that was on the SRSs there. Not that the elementary ones aren't busy too, but a lot more kids per SRS at the high school, middle school, intermediate school. And so we've really been trying since the pandemic to hire those positions at the high school, Miller, Lenahan, and MLA, I believe. But as Ellie mentioned, in a perfect world, it would be great to have that kind of support at each of our buildings. And honestly, we need more than one person at the larger buildings.
Mm-hmm. Is there a barrier because of the job description to hire? Because I know
We did change that.
Did you change
recently. So the BA is no longer required.
Okay.
So there's like equivalent experience. Jackie, I'm looking at you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so when the position started, it was through partnership with
Right.
MICA, which had conditions requiring a four-year degree, which did wind up being a barrier, so.
So is that a recent change then? Very recent. Okay. Perfect. Hopefully we get.
So if you know someone.
Yeah, I do.
I wanted to say one more thing, and this was due to Ellie's leadership, and those of you who are parents in the district probably received it. She's done some preventative work as well, just kind of celebrating attendance. So if you received, well, Zach, you have 4 children, so you probably received 4 of these.
I had a kid that was tardy.
put me on the
Lindsay
spot.
received 4, like a little monthly reminder of how many days your child has missed. So very exciting that she'll continue doing that for every month. We'll get little progress reports.
I did get that email, and my children's names were not on it. So I thought, since you brought it up, I was like, maybe we should, if we could add that would be
Yes,
good.
no,
Okay.
absolutely. I think this is the first time that we have sent something like that out in the district where we pull information for the whole district. And we were so confident, so excited. I was wearing my cheerleading uniform. And then I'm like, oh no, the names. So I apologize for that. So you can definitely log on to your Infinite Campus and look at your child's attendance anytime. It's updated live. Yes, yeah, we'll definitely get it right next time.
The only question I have, it seems like we have a process in place, and I know we're advocates and trying to find resources if the kids are having a hard time getting to school, and it looks like after 10%, we're sending a list to the county attorney, and that 20%, we're sending it again. Have you built a relationship with the county attorney at this point?
Yes, we actually had a great meeting. Luke is the staff attorney that will be working with us, and he was great. I think we're on the same page as we do want to be restorative and we want to be supportive of families. We do weigh what a simple misdemeanor means, but at the end of the day, we want what's best for the child, and we just want to do our due diligence to follow the policy, and the county attorney decides if they want to take legal action or not.
One question. For the medical reasons, is it self-attestation or is a medical documentation required, or is it case by case, just depending on the chronic absence?
Yeah, that is a great question. So if you look at the policy under the illness or the excused absence due to illness, so we understand that if my child has a fever, I'm not going to go to the pediatrician just to, for them to tell me they have a fever. So we are saying 3 consecutive medical absences, and then we will require a doctor's note, because we consulted with a nurse and she said, 3 days is usually when you should probably take your child to the doctor. But also we want to be understanding that, there are limited resources or limited access to transportation and pediatricians. And then we also have a little clause in there that if a student has reached 10% or is chronically absent, the school may request a medical excuse depending on case-by-case scenario.
Okay.
Good question.
And is there, I'm sure there is, I was trying to look for it right now on the website, is there a place where if parents have questions regarding their attendance, we can refer them to a place on the website that lists kind of the different, fee, I think the policy in different scenarios?
Yes, no, I love that. And I hope, Abby, we can get a FAQ or Q&A with the attendance policy on the website, but I do have to write that up just to compile different questions. Right now, your best resource would be to contact your school. Again, I am meeting with the school attendance group every week or every other week. So they would be great at answering any attendance questions that you have, or if you want to email me, you can, but they should be able to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Are the letters that are being sent, are they directly from the school, or is it like a district letter?
Yes, great question. So the letter will be sent from the principals, but I sort all that data and then I confirm with the schools who is receiving the letter. So again, the students who are receiving the letter are under the age of 16, and then the schools will be sending a letter for 11th and 12th graders if they see the need as a tool to improve their attendance.
So the letter appears as though it's coming from the principal, which it is.
Oh, okay.
It's just we're at a district level making sure they all go out at the same time.
Okay.
And they are certified letters. So that was one of the policy requirements.
So it will behoove us to reduce that number significantly.
Yeah, certified letters are expensive to send.
Any other questions?
Which one am I looking at here? 5013R2. and maybe this has always been, it's disenrollment after 9 consecutive days of missed. Has that always been?
Yep.
Okay. Do we do that often? Okay.
Yeah, particularly for the
And then they just re-enroll when they, like if they're gone for, they just re-enroll? Is that how they do it?
Yeah, it used to be a hard drop, meaning they were just completely off our books, let's say. Now we can soft drop them, which means they're not actively reported to the state, but we can bring them back a lot easier.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not like we drop them and they have to go to school in a different school district?
No.
No, right? Okay.
Do you want me to explain that? So they don't have to go back to the Welcome Center and repeat the whole registration process again. We have all that information stored and we can turn it back on for them. But before we would do soft drop, they'd have to go through all of that registration process again because they were gone 9 consecutive days. And it did happen a lot.
Or more.
Thank you for explaining. You know, I'm new to the board and don't know the policy from the school. And as a parent, thankfully my kids, go to school and don't have a problem with that. But I know that within our Hispanic culture, I'll be getting a lot of questions, and I have already regarding this new attendance. So perfect timing. So a lot of the information I will be able to provide for them from this PowerPoint. That's why I was asking those specific questions, because of the questions that I have received.
Yeah, awesome. And to clarify, those are 9 unexcused absences. So after 9 unexcused,
In a row?
we will, in a row. Yes, yeah. And for, that you mentioned Hispanic families, I have created a form to gather those longer family trips. So we're hoping to get that information as soon as possible. Our policy still says at least 5 days before the trip, but that way we can work with the family and establish a good partnership, so we know, what the parents' role is in helping them structure that education while they're away.
Yeah, and it was a long family trip that they had in plan. Yeah, so thank you.
I did like the email, just, it was good.
Yeah, I said you're
I was
doing
like,
great. You're a great
"Oh,
parent.
checked
4
my
times.
high school kids, and I was like, I think this is Nick. I think that, so it was, I like, have preventative. Yeah, so it was nice to have.
Awesome, thank you.
High school's next, but we need to, are there any questions about any of those revised or new policies? Okay, then we need a motion to approve 50103, 5013R1, 5013R2, and waive, well, I guess we're going to bring them back. We'll approve them on a temporary emergency basis and then bring them back for a first reading. Is there a motion along those lines?
Move to approve.
Second.
Hernandez Morales, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. That motion carries 5-0. And then we need to delete 50110 and 50111.
Move to approval.
Second.
Morales, Wise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. That motion carries 5-0. Okay.
Just want to say one more thing. If you have questions from parents, don't hesitate to direct them to Ellie because she will definitely help them as well.
Perfect. I might get your contact after.
Justin? And it looks like you brought the whole team.
Just real quick. Okay, thanks for having us in tonight. So,
hey, go ahead and introduce everybody again, just in case.
I'm Justin Bolivar, principal at Marshtown High School, interim. This is Melissa Brummel, associate principal. Roy Frakes, associate principal. Mr. Hector Campos, associate principal. So I don't want to be necessarily the whole face of this because this team has worked on this quite extensively since the last time this was brought up to you all. Worked with Ellie on this. Mr. Campos and Mrs. Brummel have worked on this with her as well. So what we did, because we had really no tardy policy in our handbook whatsoever, and that was kind of brought up to us, brought to my attention. So we are bringing this back to your attention to put this in. One of the things that we have added, if you go back and look at number 4, we do have an exception to this policy, and students may be given exceptions to this policy from school staff for individual circumstances. Another thing we were doing, we were playing with this idea. I got ahead of myself, so I apologize to all of you for that. We, in the first week, went from 80 students. We were not sure what to call it, so we called it, ISS for a time being, and then we moved to TMI, which is Time Management Information. Intervention, I said. Time Management Intervention. Hector came up with a form that then the students would work on, and then we can look at this form. And it was incredible what information Hector was pulling from that form. It had everything from I can't find rides, I am taking family members here, I am taking family members there, we have to share a car. It was pretty incredible, which is why we put homeroom at the beginning of the day, and we're using that, and we understand that families have difficulties in the morning. So that's why we are starting at actually first block or the first period of the day. There is no more ISS. Hector actually worked with Dave Stanfield, and we can name this Time Management Intervention, right? Yes. Anyway, so I think this is positive. It's also going to help our attendance, because instead of now having, and our numbers have increased. If I don't know if you've been in our hallways, but kids are back. We got our wanderers back. They know there's kind of no bite anymore, so they go back to what was before. It's a policy that kids have up to half an hour. So they can walk in almost half an hour late, and then what happens? We still count them absent, but now they're in the class, because this is how we've always done this. So I think this will make a big difference as far as attendance as well, because when we have them in the hallways, they're not learning. Nothing good comes from wandering the hallways. So we'll take them to this time management intervention. We have a tool that we can ask questions. We also are going to use our our cameras in the classrooms. So on the 14th, with the help of Shauna, we're getting some trainers to come in, show teachers how to use those cameras, retrain, show how to go live in each of their classes, and we're also bolstering our Canvas work. So kids can also go to Canvas. Right now it's more, there's the homework piece, but we're trying to add, hey, a teacher could come down and talk to that student, or they can hop on live for that class. So those are some of the big changes that we're gonna make, if you will accept this policy, or this tardy procedure into our handbook. And they have worked intimately with this as well, so if you have some questions, I can answer those.
So those cameras will turn on as class starts, and if they are tardy, wherever this intervention room will be, they can log on and still participate. Will there be some headsets available or headphones available, or?
Yeah, we'll make headsets available so it's not interrupting. It will be in the ISS room.
That can be an excuse.
Yeah, just because it's a large classroom space.
Right.
And frankly, we haven't had a lot of kids in school suspension. So it'll be a nice space for those students to be in there as well. And it makes it easier, so when our security person takes kids, or one of the administrators, we're not having to go back to email, what room was that today? So it's succinct. We know exactly, the students know exactly where to go. We're gonna let them know, just like last time. Some just take themselves there because they just know it's easier just to go there. You have your timeout and your time management intervention for that class period, and then you head back. We're expecting great things. Like I said, we went from, the marker was we had 80 students, but at the time we were taking the cell phones, we won't do that either. I mean, they'll have to turn them in when they get into the room, because we don't want them to be on their phone. So they'll turn that in. When they leave, they can have that phone back. But that was a good marker for us, because like I told you, we went from 80 to 10 just in 1 week alone. And we got a lot of great reviews from not only the students, but we've all heard from parents in the community. We've heard from students in the hallways, and we've heard from our the loudest has been from our teachers. Were anxious for us to get in front of you this evening and see if we couldn't get this back going again. Other questions?
I just have a comment. I've seen the hallways, the 3 days that I'm there, and it's a big difference. Now that the policy, the rule was not in place, you can tell who the stragglers are, and there was no sweeping, and it just happens. But I will also say that back when I was in high school, when I was a senior in 1998, my high school started doing that. And our intervention room was the auditorium. We're sitting 3 seats away from everybody, and we had to be quiet. And there was no cell phones back then. I didn't have a cell phone. So it was very boring. I wanted to be in class. I didn't want to be tardy. So I hope it works. It continues to work because I saw it work the first week.
Thank you.
Yeah, I commend you guys for taking this on because unequivocally it was the number one concern of staff, just the whole hallway situation with people wandering and kids coming in at all different hours, which creates a disruption for the kids that are on time as well as the teachers. So it was great that this was a priority for you guys to get the school year started off on the right track, and I'm sure that there will continue to be some needs to reflect, reevaluate, adjust accordingly. And I think the same holds true with like the audio enhancement because in theory, yes, we should be able to live stream and or record, but some of that depends on the magnitude, the number of kids and the number of rooms that are impacted, and how do we make those communications without creating a disruption for the classroom and that sort of thing. So I know that we literally at Cabinet today had a little bit of conversation with Amy and Shauna and about that, and we'll continue to work with you on that.
I would thank Amy as well. I'm sure she's been a lot of help behind this and getting this set up as well. This is a big tech movement, and we had to push away some SEL learning for that day, so that's been great for our district to support this work. It's great for the people behind the scenes and this team here for keeping their foot on the gas, so to speak, and keep pushing this forward. So
I would have to say I really appreciate this. I know there's students that want to be there to learn, and showing up late is a distraction. And the only question I have is, I know sometimes we don't get the word out to parents or community members. If this gets approved, how do we make sure the parents, community members know about it?
Appreciate you asking that because I knew I was going to say it and then I forgot, so thank you. So yes, this would not be we start, if you guys said yes this evening, it wouldn't be we start tomorrow. So I'd take this exact thing right here, make it a bit.ly, and then I'll put that out on Remind, and we'd do the same thing. We kind of talk this over. It would be a Monday, kind of a Monday start. I don't know if it's approved tonight, then that's what we would talk about tomorrow at our admin meeting. And we want to give families time. We want to give families to talk to their students. We want the students to start hearing about it again because this is how we slow rolled this. We built it up about a week and a half, I think, is how we kind of slow rolled this. And so we want to do that again. We want students, we want parents, and we want our teachers, especially in homeroom, to be able to talk about this. And then just let all our kids and parents know about the expectation. So, yeah.
I have a question. What are we doing? What's the follow-up on that personal reflection? Yes, you're welcome. So is there somebody monitoring those, for the personal reflection sheet?
Yes, we can monitor those. That was part of it. So, Mr. Campos was you want to talk, Mr. Campos?
Here. This has been shared. Mr. Campos, you need the microphone.
You need the microphone.
So our teachers have access to this living document, and I know for a fact that many of them read it and keep track of it because these are their students. And so I think it's a great way to kind of have that conversation, not just from us, but also with the teacher or the person they trust the most. It may not be one of us, but it will be one of the teachers that they have throughout the day. We also have our counselors accessing these documents, and Ms. Langeshoot, our SRO social worker, also. So I'm hoping that this will kind of point the way to a more refined way of doing PBIS, of kind of being able to identify those high flyers, students that have rougher time going through school and adjusting, and having those conversations with them. And if we need to work with them during ENR or our enrichment period, then we can do that, because we'll have that short list kind of more scientifically gathered. And I think hearing from the students is the way to start the conversation with them and their families.
Thank you.
Caitlin, Legay, I don't want to put you, I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. You guys are students, you're in the building. Do you have thoughts you want to share?
I think I've definitely seen a change, like, definitely the hallways. I'm in the main hallway with the stairwell. I've always avoided that hallway just because there's always a huge crowd. And this year I can actually use that hallway because I know that I'm not gonna need to squeeze through a mob of people. So that's really nice. I think everyone can definitely tell that there are different rules, and yes, we have to follow them. Yes, they're more strict, but we need rules, and they're working.
Yep, and I agree with Caitlin. I definitely seen a big difference, and I can get to class way easier than before.
Thank you.
And to the complainers, like my niece, all I have to say is get to class on time. Get to class on time, and we wouldn't have to do this. I mean, they've abused it so long. I've seen kids 20 minutes after the bell ring walking to class, getting out of the restroom. So get to class on time, and we wouldn't have to set the rules this strict. You would be fired. I mean, if we're setting our students up to be college and career ready, being late is not being ready.
We're missing too much work in our school.
Any other questions, comments from anybody? Then is there a motion to approve the revisions to the MHS tardy procedure within the student handbook as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Morales, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank
you, everybody.
Can I just say something quick to the admin team? I just wanted you to know that homecoming this weekend, my kids went to homecoming. Sorry, I just wanted to tell you this. My kids went to homecoming and they had a great time, and I have heard so many positive things about the homecoming dance on Saturday night. So thank you very much for letting our children have a great time. So thank you, because I have heard positive all the way around. So
very true.
Yes, very true. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Oh, Justin, you might as well leave that chair up there.
There we go. Okay. I'm back. You know who I am. I have some wonderful guests with me, our BU site coordinators. So Amy Pollard, how many years have you been with us, Amy?
This is 30.
Okay, 30. And kindergarten teacher at Hoagland, and she decided to work year-round and join us as a site coordinator, which is wonderful. Grant Sincox, how many years in are you?
This is my 4th year.
4. Okay, and he...
Long ways to go. Ew.
He runs circles around most of us. And then Shauna Garth, she jumped in mid-summer for us and just did a wonderful job. She's a TK teacher over at Hoagland. And sorry, Grant, you're ELL at Woodbury. So I'm very pleased to have them with me tonight, and I'm excited to get to give you a bit of an update about Bobcat University. So some of you may already know this, but I wanted to share the programming for Bobcat U, our summer school opportunity for K through 3rd grade. We run about a 4-week session for every single elementary building. So you can see session 1, Anson, Rogers, Woodbury, and each of these guys were a site coordinator at those buildings, and you can see the number of students that we served. Session 2, July 15th through August 9th, and then Fisher, Franklin, Hoagland. Those are all happening at the same time. Students are selected or invited to come. Not any student can come. We actually have to invite the student to come, and typically it's for academic reasons, meaning that they're not yet proficient in either reading or math. Sometimes it's more of a social emotional need too, so it doesn't necessarily mean that every single student needs additional support in academics, but that's the primary reason that we invite students to attend. And then you can see the daily schedule, which is obviously very different than a school day. About the morning, they get a lot of their SEL and reading and math, and then in the afternoon, they get to go out to their community partnerships. Sorry, next slide. All right, so this last week and weekend, we were crunching numbers for you guys. Whenever we run a summer school program, we really want to focus on students either staying, we don't want our students to regress over the summer. So we're trying to prevent that summer regression in our student achievement. And when you look at our percent of students who attended BU, that's the percent of students who did not regress or improved in their literacy score. So we're able to use our fast spring score compared to our fast fall score. And believe it or not, we had some students that attended BU and then did not, they ended up moving and didn't come, return. They might return eventually, but they're not here quite yet. What's really cool about Bobcat U this summer, very special, we doubled our enrollment, about doubled our enrollment. We actually invited, we had a huge turnout for staff interest in wanting to work this summer. So we we rostered our students accordingly, and we had several different funding streams that could support that. When you look at the percent steady or improved by grade level, I think it's interesting because it really mimics that stair stepping that we've looked at before within our student achievement. Kindergarten being the group that had more students that regressed over the summer, but when you get up into the 2nd and 3rd grade, you're seeing about 70% of kids are able to hold on to their progress or improve. It was really cool to get in there and see the itemized results because we had many students who actually went from in the red or yellow, very at risk, into benchmark. So that's really cool. Showing the strength of course, the teachers and the site coordinators and every adult that wrapped their arms around them with support. You might be wondering, how much does BU cost? Well, in 2024, a lot of money because we did double the number of students that we were serving and the staffing. That totaled about $635,000. And you can see that was split between 3 different funding sources. So actually, I think in the middle of the summer, possibly in July, maybe late June, I can't remember, we were given the opportunity to apply for that summer school grant. So that was just kind of an extra little bonus that we got in there, and it worked out really well for us. But BU does cost a lot of money because those community partnerships, all those experiences that the kids get to engage with cost money. Obviously the teachers as well, and then the program assistants, and then I literally would never be able to survive BU without these 3 here. The site coordinators are absolutely essential. So if you keep scrolling, you might wonder, why would kids want to come to summer school? And I think a lot of you would have different answers, but primarily, I think it's the relationships that we build and the experiences that they get to have. So if you look at how extensive this is, in the afternoons, these are the different experiences that they get to have when they engage with us in BU. And because those experiences are all afternoon, I think they just get to continuously work to transfer those SEL skills that they learn in the morning over to the afternoon with their peers, their program assistants, and the site coordinators. So we have a lot of pictures, and this is where I get to pass the mic off. Oh, I'm sorry, take it back. I did survey the staff, and anyone who participated in BU could submit different glows and grows. What are some ways that we could improve BU? We'll definitely be reviewing those and making sure that we continuously look for improvement. But I wanted to give you just some pull quotes of the really positive features there. So some are from program assistants, some are from teachers. We could have probably asked our students, and they would have had awesome things to say as well. But I think you can really see that in the pictures. So if you keep scrolling, I'm going to hand the mic over to, or Grant, I don't know, is that still on? It might have died.
Oh, it died. It's died. All right,
Okay.
it's dead.
All right, so these are my wonderful Woodbury students. Right there on the top left, we've got Raymond Gardens and Ames. In the middle, that's Earl May here in Marshalltown with an MHS grad who I had during student teaching. Shout out to Diego. Up there on the top right is the Iowa State Creamery. Bottom left and bottom right are the Marshalltown Aquatic Center, which they absolutely loved. And then bottom middle was Ralph Rains, where they got to ride a horse, groom a horse, and feed a horse. And then I was also the site coordinator at Franklin. A lot of pictures there also from Raymond Gardens and Ames, the YMCA during their swim lessons and water safety. You can see the Orpheum, our welcome center there. And then we also got the art day on the bottom left.
I had already downloaded the PDF. I'll share the actual link. Amy had a slide of Hogan pictures as well, I think. Is that okay? They were really cute. So what questions do you have for us? And I'm sure anyone could answer.
I'll make a comment, and I'm sure Karina can relate to this, and probably Amy too. 9 years ago when I came back to Marshalltown and had the honor to be superintendent, one of the first things that was shared with me was the great pride in the Rogers University program that had been in existence through the partnership with Micah. And I think it was around the second or third meeting where I had heard this story that I asked Arlene and the rest of the Micah team, well, what about Anson or Woodbury or Hoagland or Fisher? We're getting such great results out of this. Rogers University, what's the plan to replicate across the district? Because we have students in every one of those buildings in Franklin that could benefit from this. And so initially, under the leadership of Dr. Stevenson, working with Mike and people like Karina, and then through Shauna, this thing has really mushroomed into a great educational experience, both in learning math, science, and getting kids closer to or at proficiency, but then the cultural experiences that you saw that list of. Many of those things are nearby, but I would say a vast majority of our kids have never experienced it. Right. So there's as much value in that as probably, the math and the science that they're getting in the morning. And we've got other great partners like Iowa State University Extension also that's offering up opportunities for any and all students. So it wouldn't happen without great teachers. So, the willingness of our teachers in addition to others to help support these kids. It's been unbelievable to watch it grow.
Another thing that Shauna left out too is the kids got breakfast, lunch, and 2 snacks. So the fact of all the food service people and the people that got all those things ready too, it couldn't be done without them because transportation was all provided. That was huge because I know we would call and say, hey, guess what? This kid needs to go on the bus. Rex, can you get them on the bus? Yes, I got it done. Don't worry about it. Or call Connie or call Nikki and they would take care of it. So it really took an entire village to get everybody where they needed to be. And I know I could call Grant and say, Grant, I need markers. Okay, come over and get them. I've got a whole supply room here.
And I shouldn't forget our finance department either for helping figure out how to plug these, how to pay for all this.
How to pay for it, yes.
I can add to what Dr. Schutte said. It just makes me proud to hear that it's still going, obviously. I was part of Rogers University, and I was part of the expansion to all 6 elementaries. And then at one point, actually, it was for 2 years, it was at Lenahan as well. So that was a big 2 years. Is it still Lenahan? It was part of BU. But I'm most proud, not just for our district, but the community, that involvement. A lot of those community partners that are there have been partners for over 14 years still. So I would say probably 90% of those are still partners and started with Rogers University. So that's very proud.
And kind of like what Darren was saying about how some of these students, this is like their first time experiencing these things. Like, I don't know, I started like as a sub, and I subbed a lot on the bowling days. And so, but it's just so much fun to see them. A lot of them have never been bowling or even like fishing. And it's like to see their excitement, like when they catch a fish or I put a worm on it, and just so those small things, especially in the afternoon, it's fun to see.
Or some of them haven't even ever left Marshalltown.
Oh, literally, Going to Ames is a big deal for them, and so.
Or the movie in the movie theater.
Mhm.
I would think that that would be a very common experience when you walk through the door, and they're like, oh,
Wow. Yeah. Or even like getting the free books that the students got. Each student got a book, and just like,
10 books.
oh, not just one, 10 books. Yeah, 10 books. And so it's just like, they're like, yeah, like I get 10 books. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw a shout out to Erica Fenders, our curriculum professional development leader for elementary, for working hard at acquiring the initial grant and ongoing financial support through Reading is Fundamental in order to provide kids with those resources and families.
So I have a couple of questions. First is just a comment. I mean, Bobcat University is one of the things that I talk to people about when I tell them about the things that I'm most proud of in the Marshalltown School District. So that's number one. Number two, you served 380 kids. How does that compare to the number of kids that would be, meet the criteria to attend Bobcat University?
I don't know.
I mean, are we serving 75% of the kids that meet the criteria? I know it's invitation and they have to accept, but.
Yeah, I can probably crunch some numbers. I don't even want to guess, to be honest.
Okay.
The need far outweighs our ability to accommodate if everybody took advantage of it.
I was thinking in my head of the Hopeland list, and there were a lot of kids on the Hopeland list. Part of the issue, though, becomes that we ask parents to commit for the full 4 weeks, and that's a big commitment in the summer because you've got vacations or you've got. So I'm just thinking, I mean, I knew that Hopeland list pretty well, and the number of students on that Hopeland list, many of them declined the invitation just because they didn't feel that they could do the 4 weeks because of prior commitments, or just chose, no, I don't want my child to do that. And I'm thinking of like the kindergarten list, we probably had on that list kids that were eligible, I want to say 25.
Yeah, so as soon as the invite is out and then the parent declines, then it's like bump the next. So if you're wondering, like, are there more kids that need invites, access? Did we end up inviting everyone that we thought needed it? And I think this year that answer is close to yes because we served so many more kids. But in years past, the answer would be no.
Right. My other question is, I mean, we used ESSER money for this year. So, and this is maybe a Randy question. Is it sustainable to serve 380, 400 kids next year?
Those are questions, we'll need to work through. I don't want to say yes or no to that question right now. I know part of the last few years with that is because of the ESSER funding, we have been able to pay our staff a higher rate of pay because of that influx of federal funding. So staff are paid essentially $50 an hour for those types of duties. Now that funding is sunsetted, we'll have to go back to previous practices of paying staff at the creative rate, which that varies from staff member to staff member depending on where they're at on the salary schedule. On average, it's about $35 an hour for staff members. So still something, but not kind of what they've been used to. So that'll be some some challenges we'll have to navigate through over the next several months as we prepare for the upcoming year.
Well, and I know that the expansion of this, of being able to accommodate more kids is always heavily taken into consideration every year when we work on that annual at-risk budget. So usually in December, January, we're looking at bringing that forward to you for next school year. So I'm sure that'll be included in there. But yeah, we were able to do a lot of extra things courtesy of both the federal ESSER dollars as well as the state infusion in the 12th hour when they were trying to figure out how to spend their ESSER dollars. So
It was nice.
hopefully it would be great if the state would be able to continue to offer up something to help support, because that's the number one reason it doesn't happen more often in school districts, that there's a high price tag with it.
So Amy, if you could go back to that finance slide. So the full service grant through MICA sunsets, did sunset on September 30th. Same with ESSER, is that correct?
Yes.
And that summer school grant is, I believe, a one-time opportunity because it was a state
it was
pot.
the state's ESSER funding, yeah.
State pot of ESSER funds that they're trying to spend down, so. Good question.
One thing that we might want to look into is to see if I think it's called the Community Service Grant that often supports before school, after school programming as well as summer school. Marshtown's been the recipient of that on a couple of occasions, but we're currently not on cycle receiving that, so that may be something too. The challenges with those grant funds are always designed to with gradual release, so they fully support programs for a year or two, and then they start backing off the funding to 80, 70, 60 or what have % in an effort for districts to try to figure out how they can sustain it, with other funding sources. But this is definitely a high priority item, so I know that we will, Shauna, Randy, I, and others will be working hard to try to figure out where we can find funds to keep it going, and hopefully at close to the degree that we most recently had this summer, because the need's there.
And Rogers U was under that, one of those grants where it went down from the 80, 50. It's hard to sustain after that if you don't have funding for the district too.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
I appreciate the data, the student achievement data. I think that's, if the whole purpose of this is to make sure that kids don't slide and in fact can improve, and so yeah, that's great data. So, thank you.
I want to reiterate how important these three are. They are amazing. So, thank you to each of you. I really appreciate your leadership and all the work that you did, not only with staff, but students. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do my best to fill in for Matt Kretzinger this evening, since he is out of town on a much-deserved trip. So before you on the next agenda item is the annual approval of the special education deficit. So as a quick recap history, because the next agenda item is going to sound counterintuitive to what I'm talking about right now. So special education in the school finance world is kind of an entity in and of itself. So while the funding for it works very similar to our general fund and regular streams of money that come in, with special education, there is additional weighting and funding that comes from the state that is driven by enrollment and state supplemental aid each year. However, with special education, under the current laws, services within an IEP, we can't deny services. So if there's a student that comes in, for example, that says, let's say, has a $100,000 price tag for special needs or services, we can't say no whether we have the funding for that or not. So because of the lack of funding on the state level, special ed tends to run in the majority of districts in the state at a deficit every single year. So with that, there are funding mechanisms through the state that we can do to recover not only funding from that deficit, but also our spending authority. So tonight in front of you is the annual request to request our spending authority from the School Budget Review Finance Committee, the SBRC. So this year, our deficit did increase from fiscal year 23 to 24. It did go up to $1,003,097. That's up from $575,000 from last year. Few drivers for that. The biggest one, as you recall, couple years ago, we increased the hourly wages for all of our hourly staff. A large portion of our hourly staff was our paras, who the majority of them are funded through special education. This fiscal year 23-24 was the first year that we saw the impacts of that. So that was something that we had planned in and budgeted, seen coming. That was the biggest driver of the deficit. We did also have increased costs through purchase services and special education open enrollment. And then also offset, we did see a decrease in our Medicaid reimbursement funding from fiscal year 23 to 24. So did see an increase, 575 to just over $1 million. I know that sounds alarming, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not, because when we're budgeting out and looking at some of the projections that I'll be speaking to here in a minute, especially kind of gets carved out of that and doesn't really have an impact on the overall financial health of the district. So long story short, that's kind of where we're at, asking for formal approval to seek the spending authority piece. That's what's being asked of tonight from the School Budget Review Finance Committee. Any questions that I can answer?
Randy, we've had a number of years of decline prior to this bounce back.
Yep.
But weren't we real close to 2 million in deficit prior to?
At one point, yes. Yeah, probably right when you first came, I'm guessing, about 7-8 years ago. So yeah, and that's the thing with special ed, because of how the law works, you can have significant swings from one year to the next and not be able to predict it. So we did have a slight increase this year. We did know that some of that, majority of that increase was coming from the increase in the salaries to our support staff. What was somewhat unexpected was the decrease in the Medicaid funding that we received, and some of the additional services that we ended up having to get billed for.
Other questions? Then is there a motion to approve seeking authority from the School Budget Review Committee for allowable growth and supplemental aid for a negative special education balance in the amount of $1,003,096.90 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wise Wall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
All right. And real quick, Amy, if you want to pull up the presentation. Yep, that one. Perfect. All right. So on September 23rd, I did review this information with the Finance Committee, and I'll review it with all of you here tonight. Not really much of a change from last year. We did finish and close out our fiscal year 23-24, submitted those reports to the state by the September 15th deadline. And so after those are submitted, we review just where we stand. So Amy, if you want to go to the next slide. Here. I'll go over two major metrics tonight. The first one being our solvency ratio. So this one basically really measures our cash and the ability of our cash on hand to manage any unexpected fluctuations in increased expenditures. So our board policy currently states at 8 to 10% minimum. The fiscal year 23 state average was 21.4%. IASB recommends about a 15% level, recommended not to exceed 25%. Standard & Poor's, I put that on there because even though when we're issuing debt, it doesn't impact the general fund, which is what this metric measures, is out of the general fund. Standards & Poor's, those bond investors like to see that you're being responsible with your other funds, not just your debt service funds. So they look at this, look at these solvency ratios. They like to see at least 20%. So we did see a decrease from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24 from 25.3 to 22.54, but we are still well above where we need to be and are projecting to hold that out steady over in the future. So no major concerns there. We do want to see a slight decrease kind of back down to a more manageable level. As we reviewed with the Finance Committee, we would like to kind of see it more in that 10 to 15% range. So we're going to be working to kind of get that down and then have it plateau out and just really kind of try and maintain at that IASB recommended level. And I believe the Finance Committee had suggested possibly bringing our board policy back at some point to review that to have our practice reflect what the state recommends.
I'd like to bring that policy back.
Yep. We will do that at some point. So next slide.
I guess while you're moving to the next slide, can I
Absolutely.
Can I ask or say, I think it was, intentional that our solvency ratio went down from 25 to 22.
Yes. Yeah. No. I guess I should just for historical context, just for the newer board members. So 6 years ago, when I was with the district the first time, and with my predecessor Paulette Newbold when she was here, I think our, as you can see on the slide, the solvency ratio was 4.6% at that time. So we, as I'll get into, we had plenty of a spending authority. We had authority to spend the cash. We just didn't have the cash to spend to back up that authority for various reasons. So one of the I guess what's the word I want to look for? The impacts of the ESSER funding was we were able to fast track getting that solvency ratio back up, because the only real two mechanisms that districts have to increase that solvency ratio is either to cut expenditures or to levy a cash reserve tax rate. So it's either, somehow cutting programs or possibly staff, or, having the taxpayers carry the burden, which neither one of those is ideal in any situation. So this was one of the benefits that we enjoyed from that federal funding coming in to allow us to get up to well above what we needed or wanted to be. And then now it puts us in the driver's seat to be able to maintain at a more healthy level moving forward. But thank you for bringing that up. Yep. Go back up a slide, Amy. So there we go. So the next piece is just the other financial metric is our spending authority. So this is the one that can, if districts that experience steady declining enrollment, this is one that hurts districts if you have steady declining enrollment, because if this metric ever gets negative, if it stays negative for more than 2 years, then the state essentially has the ability to come in and shut your district down. So thankfully, since we have a very, very steady enrollment here, this is not a measurement that we tend to worry about, but we still keep an eye on it just to make sure that we're monitoring trends and that we're staying where we need to be. But still a very important metric, and fortunately, we're on the good side of that. So, and then the next slide. I know this one's hard to see. If you were to zoom in, this just gives a recap of all of our different fund balances for the year. On this slide and the next slide, it goes over our fund balances. With the exception of the general fund, all of our fund balances increased from the prior year. And as you can see on those slides, those funds are all broken down into different buckets that we're allowed to spend those monies on. The general fund did see a decrease. Again, that was kind of partially due to some of the salary increases that we had to purposely spend down, or purposely get our solvency ratio down, plus that last push to get the last little bit of ESSER funding spent. I think in this last year we had roughly just about over $1 million of ESSER funding that we had to get spent down still. So we made a big push to get some final purchases made to spend those funds down. And then on the next slide, again, go down. The remainder of the funds there, again, increases from the prior year. I will say, oh, sorry, Amy, if you go back a slide, I didn't cover it on the last slide. I was on this one. So you'll see on the debt service slide, there's a balance of 2.2 million, roughly there, 2.3 million. That is, so we paid off our general obligation bonds this past fiscal year, so you would anticipate to see that being a zero balance since those bonds are paid off. But due to some of the investing that we've done over the last 20 years with that bond issuance, as well as some of the prepaid levies that were issued and some of the tax abatement that we use to utilize our sales tax dollars to pay for some of the bonds, we've been able to build up a balance in that debt service fund. So I'm working with our advisors at Piper Sandler. So some point in the near future, we'll be looking, because what we can legally do if there's a balance left in the debt service fund after the GO bonds have been paid off, we can transfer those funds over to our PEPL through a board resolution. So we'll be looking at possibly transferring roughly about $2 million from debt service over to PEPL here in the near future, which will help with some of the other projects that we have going on. Yeah, again, nothing really on that next slide there. And then the last slide here is just a quick recap of the last 5 years of our general fund. You can see the actual revenues and expenditures year over year, as well compared to the budget. Again, so we've had some revenues in fiscal year 24. Received about $3.5 million of additional revenues that we weren't anticipating. A lot of that was things like the summer school grant Shauna referenced earlier. That MICA grant was another one. The elementary at-risk funding. So lots of different funding streams that we were able to take advantage of this year that we currently weren't able to take advantage of before. And then the expenditures, that 2.1 again this last year was the first real significant year impact of a lot of the support staff changes. So that's a big driver of that number there too, along with the additional spending of things such as ESSER. So moving forward, some of those budget and actual numbers should decrease and kind of right size and line back up with each other moving forward. But so with our annual financial statements, so at the annual meetings each November, the board is I'm required as board secretary to present the financials and the treasury reports to the board. That's usually done at the November meeting because of the laws around board elections and whatnot. So this is kind of a preview to what will be presented to you for formal approval to formally approve the 23-24 financial statements sometime in November. But at this point in time, I will open it up to any questions or if there's anything that I missed from the finance committee meeting.
I don't think so. Zach, did you?
No, I really appreciate this. It's nice to see that we talk about solvency rate of how we're above the average for that in the state of Iowa. And I appreciate all the hard work you do to watch watch what our school district does to keep us in this position.
Okay. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to policies.
Yeah, so we have 3 policies that were amended coming back to you for first reading. There were no further changes made to these policies since you last saw them. 104 R1 anti-bullying, anti-harassment policy, investigation procedures. 502.1 use of motor vehicles. And 700 the purpose of non-instructional and business services. I would recommend the board approve these 3 policies and regulations and waive the second reading.
Are there any questions? Then is there a motion to amend 10401, 50210, and 700 and waive the second reading?
Move to approval.
Second.
Morales Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. And then, Liz, did you have initial reviews?
I have 3.
Go for it.
The first one is 104-E1 harassment complaint form. No changes and mark as reviewed. The second is 104-E2, harassment witness disclosure form. No changes, marked as reviewed. And then the third one is 104E3, which is harassment at disposition of complaint form. We're adding an additional date requirement to the form. So recommendation is to go to the first reading to amend.
Questions?
What, I'm looking at these forms here, where do they get sent to?
Well, they're housed.
No, like where do they turn them into? Like who do you give them to?
Typically they would start at the building level with administration, and then depending on the circumstances, they could also come to HR.
Okay. I didn't see an address or anything. Where do you give them to them?
Other questions? Okay, 104E1 and E2 will be marked as reviewed, and 104E3 will come back for a first reading to amend. Abby, you got anything for communications?
I know I brought it up at the last meeting, but just re-emphasizing the opportunity to tour Miller Middle School at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Wednesdays, so definitely take advantage of that. And then kind of going along with the previous presentation about Miller Middle School, there's a new tab on the website, new and existing, why reimagine Miller, kind of gives more context, so people can go to that area of our informational website, marshalltowncSDfuture.com, and then you can learn more there. And then kind of from the Embrace the Lead side, the marketing side, in the future I put in the board news and notes student workshop coming up next week. Would love for you guys to come out, see the kids work on a future project with Aquis. So that's what I have.
Remind me where they're doing that.
Marshalltown Arts and Civic Center on the 17th.
Is there a time?
10:45 a.m. to 12:45 p.m.
Okay.
Robbie?
Oh, yeah. Unless you want to go into detail about that.
Well, we have Ravi coming to Marshalltown. Most of you saw him present last year at the school board convention, so he's going to be presenting to our employees during professional development on Monday morning, the 14th. And then that evening, and there should be promos going out soon to parents and or community, he'll be at the Orpheum Theater from 6 to 7 p.m. in the mini theater of the Orpheum. And then he's coming back to Marshtown High School to do some student assemblies with juniors and seniors, I believe. And then he's also going to work with some smaller groups, probably from the music department. So he'll be with us till about noon on Tuesday morning. Sean and I have had numerous meetings leading up to it. He's really excited to come to Marshtown.
And a lot of those communications are scheduled to head out tomorrow morning, so getting the word out up for it.
Good.
So we gave our student school board reps his book. You'll recall we did a book study last year, and then also provided, since all the high school administrators are new, and since he's going to be working with high school students, we gave them a copy of his book as well.
Okay. Thank you, Abby. Reminder, Zach, you have initial review policies for the next meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
Says it is. Lenahan will be here to present at the October 21st meeting. Was there a visit to Lenahan in the offing?
I'm so sorry. Completely forgot about that.
it's next Monday.
Keep an eye out.
Okay. Committee reports. I know the Finance Committee met, but we didn't cover anything at the Finance Committee that we didn't cover here tonight. I don't know if any other committees have met the last couple of weeks.
Remind me. I'm new to the committee, so they did a great job briefing me what the committee is for, and so that took a bit of a portion of the committee meeting.
Yep, we plan to open Online Academy again. So this summer we had over 100 teachers participate with Online Academy. That's, you know, an asynchronous or virtual way for them to access really important learning. Could be like relative to the new math curriculum or CQLA. They can access it when it works for them, and they get paid the TQ dollars to complete that. We're going to open that again during the school year, so like new teachers or staff that are trying to play catch up have access to it. What else did we talk about, Karina? We are financially stable in our TQ fund, which thanks to Randy, he gave us our general ledger, and we were able to just review that we spent down almost all of our TQ last year, which is like never heard of. So we worked hard to do that, and continuously looking for more ways. Tina Bugren, I don't know how many of you heard her keynote during our district welcome back. We sent out a survey to all of our teachers and asked them if they were interested in having her book, Take Time for You. And we have, I think, about 140 teachers that are interested in reading it. So it was really exciting, and we're using TQ to cover the cost.
I know we had a subcommittee meeting of the Auditorium Foundation for the purpose of talking about and getting updated on the facility improvements that had been previously approved that finally got accomplished, which was the new burlap backing on the wall, and then also some new carpeting, I think, in the upper deck there. And then at the last full board meeting, there had been a commitment of quite a few funds to go towards safety issues that were identified in the audit that we had done on the auditorium. So the wheels are in motion on many of those things in terms of having further inspection and repairs and or certification, I guess, of like the ropes and things such as that. The orchestra pit will have eventually a safety net. That's part of it. The roof hatch, which received some damage, I think, during the derecho. So just things like that. But I know the Auditorium Foundation members that are part of that facility subcommittee were really happy with the progress that Jose and Todd had made in that facility.
Any items anybody would like to see on a future agenda? What have we done this evening to improve education for the students? Oh, go ahead.
So before coming here, I attended, maybe it's just something I want to share, but maybe if we can hear more about it, because SAC expressed interest about Special Olympics. So I attended bowling. I just wanted to go watch. It was pretty neat to see. So I don't know if they have a competition coming or something. So just wanted to hear a little bit more about it. Okay. I know, I saw it. So sweet.
Okay. Then what have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
At university, we were able to hear more about that, how successful it's been, and the increase in enrollment this year.
Impressive girls.
Zach, you look like you had something, but maybe not.
I think we're one more closer to Miller, right? And in that project, hopefully, we'll see in a month.
Mm-hmm.
We had exciting updates and kind of explain the community.
30 days, I'm not counting.
Less than 30 days. So, but you know, we're trying to be transparent as we can and provide the community with resources so they can make a opinion of what they want to do. So,
What has been a marathon now has become a sprint.
Jackie, you had a whole bunch of special education paras in the personnel, so keep it up.
Very good. I'm very hopeful about the tardy rule act, policy at the high school. I think it's going to make a big difference. And our board member representative, student representative, have noticed the difference, and I bet teachers will say positive things as well. Because interruption it does interrupt learning.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Wall Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, girls.